Hello and welcome to another episode of BHIS Presents AI Security Ops. And today we're going to talk about some fun things such as what happens when prompts leak out and people are using AI unauthorized in organizations. But before we get there, let's just make sure we say that this episode is brought to you by Black Hills Information Security. If you have a need to do an assessment of an AI implementation that you have underway or already implemented, more than likely you already implemented it, please do ask us. We'd be happy to help you out. All right, on the show, we have our illustrious panel of AI simulator Joff, Brian Furman, and Derek Banks.
Welcome, I promise I'm not a deep fake.
Gentlemen.
No promises here.
I'm just waiting for the day that I can actually simulate myself 24/7 and I can physically be at the beach every day. That's it. I mean, that's what I'm after. So
Joff/AGI.
Yeah, that's
Joff
right.
-AGI.
The Joff AGI, right? I know I'd just get so totally bored if I actually did that. So, okay, let's talk about this. The Insider Threat 2.0, prompt leaks and shadow AI. Wow.
That's
okay.
A heck of a title.
It is a heck of a title. So, prompt leakage. Well, okay. First of all, what exactly is that? All right. I think that all of us know that the AIs that we're dealing with today, especially when you look at the more recent frontier models, are becoming really, really capable. Right? If you look at GPT-5, for example, you go over to their website. I know it does this deep thinking mode, and it does all kinds of interesting, weird model selection and crazy stuff now. And we also know that to get good quality results out of our AI, it is always helpful to give it lots of interesting data. However, do you know whether pasting your organization's proprietary data into GPT is a good idea or not? I would say probably not.
I would say it depends.
Okay. So let's talk about that. What does it mean to leak data in a prompt from your organization? I don't know. Derek, take a shot at it.
I think to me, what it means is you're using, I'll use the word unapproved, AI solution, such as a free ChatGPT account to do your day-to-day work. And on a free tier a ChatGPT account, and I'm sure lots of other model providers do this, or model service providers do something similar. They'll record your prompts and use it for future training and future data. And if you're putting sensitive information in there, then you could risk leaking that data for multiple different through multiple different ways. Right now, I'd like to caveat just before our listeners just before our listeners say, but if you are paying OpenAI, that's why I said it depends. Is it a good idea or not? If you're paying OpenAI, they're SOC 2 compliant and say that they don't use your data for training and other purposes if you're giving them money. I have no reason to disbelieve them. They have a compliance that we have here at Black Hills, and I'd like to say that they're probably keeping their data safe. So if you're an organization that has authorized, because every organization has an AI usage policy, right? Then it would be okay to do it. So I'm not saying that putting your company's data in ChatGPT is always bad. It could be bad. And so,
the key point there is the terms of service actually differ as to whether you are paying for the service or whether you're going in free. So, be aware of that. Just don't cowboy stuff is the first piece of advice here. Do check whether your organization has a policy, and there might be an authorized mechanism, especially with regard to these large frontier models and commercial services, for you to be able to use this stuff in a safer manner. I'm never going to say it's completely safe, but a safer manner. What's your take on that, Mr. Furman?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Because you gotta remember, right, that if something's free, you are the product. I mean, they have to they have to make their money somehow, some
You're not
way.
doing it for philanthropic reasons, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So likely, if it's something free, then probably they're going to be using your data for training, unless there's an option to where you can explicitly opt out of it. Which I don't remember if ChatGPT has that or not. But as Derek was saying, though, I know that the paid version, it says right there that they're not going to use the data for training. Same thing with Anthropic. And so a lot of it comes down to making sure that the services that you're using are that you feel at least somewhat confident that they are not going to be using your data, and that you and other authorized users are the only ones who can see it. Now, there's like another service that comes to mind immediately that I can think of, Warp Terminal, which I started playing around with for a little bit, only to discover that you can't actually use your own API key for LLM services in there, which means that they are the middle person for the LLMs, which I find absolutely terrifying and like a
Oh my God, yeah.
no. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was like a definite, like, I'm not going to use it at all, because I don't want it reading any of my stuff, because I don't know like what they're doing on the back end. So you just got to be really careful. Like Derek said, it's not completely off limits, but there certainly needs to be some caution there in what you're using.
I think that another aspect that plays into this is that when we are prompting, especially again these frontier models, that prompt history is generally maintained, and prompt history tends to be cumulative, so that the model gets a sense of context of what you're driving at with your repeated prompting, and that cumulative nature also represents a risk unto itself, right? Because I mean, will you even remember 5 prompts back what you actually told the model? First of all,
I would not.
And you're probably going to get very excitable and like cowboy all kinds of stuff while you're trying to get the model to steer the answer in the direction that you're seeking. So I think again that speaks to looking to your organization to see if there's a usage policy in your organization, to see if there's an authorized way to do this, which would be presumably through a paid service that your organization has subscribed to, et cetera, or maybe even a local model deployment. Like we do see a lot of organizations deploying models locally and using them locally as well. So
yeah, I would also say that it's not just putting stuff in a chat GPT or Claude chatbot interface. To quote my friend Craig Vincent, man, people are stuffing these LLMs in everything. And so
yeah.
I think there are other services that you kind of now need to be on the lookout for, like browser plugins or like things that like editors, like something like Grammarly. I mean, are you sure that your data is safe when you're using Grammarly? I mean, I think that, but that's a larger question for an organization, right? And
well, it's actually a really good that you said that, because I forgot to do the thing that I normally do. So, Exhibit A, here's my RF bag right here.
Is that a Faraday bag?
It is a Faraday bag. And Exhibit B, here's my phone, and watch me do this, right? You see this phone going into Faraday bag, right? Like, I'm not kidding. Go get yourself a Faraday bag, because I can tell you right now, and you probably already know it, and if you don't, you know it now. Your phone has AI-enabled features on it, and your phone also has a microphone that is a software switch that is always listening. More and more, I find myself doing this. Like really, more
I used
and more.
To think
I
that was a myth until probably last year, when my wife started getting advertisements for Christmas for things that I know she wasn't Googling for. So
yeah. If you want a private conversation, with your spouse, buy 2 of them. Okay.
And if you want to get really paranoid, unplug your smart TV too.
Oh my God! You talk about things that listen, and then it's your vehicle, and everything, right?
Oh, everything.
Yeah. So yeah, the other thing that I would be remiss if I didn't mention is many of us remember the days when cloud computing first sort of hit the streets and was being pushed heavily as, the way to do compute. And of course, all the big players were lining up, and they saw the market share revenue that was in front of them, and they went after it very aggressively. And what happened in a lot of IT shops is central IT, tried to do this ironclad control over the central stuff that they had in their data centers. But everybody out in different departments of organizations, and this was particularly horrific in universities, by the way, because I worked at a university at the time, all of them jumped on cloud computing very, very quickly, and shadow IT emerged at an amazing pace, right? And then everybody was trying to get their arms around, where is our data anymore, right? And that's the essence of it. And the same is true with the growth of AI as with the growth of cloud. Where's the data? How do we actually know? How do we even have control of where our data resides in?
Reminds me of that old 80s commercial, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? Because back in the 80s, people didn't really care about their kids very much, apparently. And, sorry, I date myself with that. But, it's 2025. Do you know where your data is?
Well, I was a teenager of the late 70s. So, no, yeah. My stepmother had a cowbell. She would ring it at about 6 o'clock at night. To kind of round up the kids, and we were all just scattered to the four winds, and we'd hear that cowbell go off, and
my dad had a whistle. Now I just text my children. So
yeah. Anyway, where's the data is a pertinent question, and
where's it going?
Where's it going? What is it being used for? We know that with free services, you are the product. Whether it comes to Google Mail or these open AI models, data has been the gold standard for making money. I think I'm mixing my metaphors. Anyway, data is the gold. It has been the gold for some time, right?
Gold, oil, something. I don't know.
Yeah, some kind of precious material. I don't know. Yeah,
it's the new oil.
Yeah.
So yeah, just be cognizant of that. We all actually exude data in this modern world that we live in, and knowing a little bit about what you're putting out there is kind of important, but having control over it is becoming near impossible, personally and organizationally, which is really quite sad. Anyway, so question: is this more of a technology problem or a cultural awareness problem in the age of large language models and AI?
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of both, right? I mean, you need to have. I think it's important to implement ways that people can use this technology that is very useful, and that can certainly help accelerate tasks, can help with productivity, can just kind of help with a lot of things in general. And so they need to have a way to make this accessible to people. Otherwise, we end up with that same shadow IT problem. I mean, another analogy that came to my mind is wireless stuff, right? I mean, what are one of the things we look for when we do a wireless assessment? Well, we look for rogue access points. And why do we usually find rogue access points? Well, people want to use the wireless, but their organization has made it extremely difficult for them to use it one way or another. And
so they run off down to their local retailer and they plug in an access point.
Plug it on in, and they're like, "Hey, now I can hook up." And
I got DA from that one time at a health facility.
I believe it. No, and I'm not saying that things need to be, that they need to be so user friendly to the point that they're insecure. But it's about striking the balance, right? And it's the same thing with these LLM technologies. Is that if you don't give people a safe, secure way to use it in a way that's feasible, they're probably going to go and they're going to find their own way. So I think that's the technological or the technical side of it. And then there is the cultural aspect of it too, to just, as we talked about, people need to be aware that there are potential implications to putting sensitive data into, into whatever resource it is. Because even if they aren't using your data for training or whatever else, you talked about earlier about prompt history. If you're not cleaning it up, that's no better than just leaving sensitive files scattered all through, whatever, Microsoft SharePoint or Google Drive or whatever you might use, just leaving it scattered around in a computer organization. I mean, it's the exact same thing. Like, you need to be careful about what you're putting in, and you need to be careful about at least trying to, clean it up on a periodic basis, right? In case there is some kind of a breach.
Yeah, I mean, I just, while you were talking about that, I just thought about my next $1 million idea. It's just that I'm not sure I want to launch another business opportunity here. But I mean, you could imagine, right, fairly easily, some sort of, WebAssembly browser extension or browser plugin whose job it was to literally monitor for AI prompting, right? And be able to at least report back to the organization that AI prompting was going on, right? So writing such a thing would not really be terribly difficult to do. So maybe we will see the emergence. Derek's there making notes. Okay, yeah, let me start the LLC now.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Yeah,
I'm actually going to get my AI bot army to go make the business plan, and no,
yeah. I mean, maybe we will see some emergence of defensive technologies that, or at least attempts at protective technologies that start to do things like that. But I don't know. I'm not necessarily optimistic right now because of one of the things that Derek said, and that is just a browser window talking to a chatbot is only one small aspect of the way that we are using AI today. I suspect most of us don't even know how much we are using AI today because of the embedding of the technology in so many different products right now.
Yeah, along the lines of like mitigation stuff you're talking about, like a potential browser plugin. There's also the concept of a cloud access security broker, or a CASB. Yes, sounds kind of funny. Which basically,
where's my drink? A drink. He threw out an acronym.
That's right.
Right there.
And so to basically, so an enforcement point for an organization's cloud services for data and usage. And so, I mean, but usually, at least in my experience, this is kind of a more mature cloud posture that customers would have, right? I don't normally see that kind of thing, but the concept is definitely exists as a technical mitigation type of strategy.
Yeah, I think the hard part is, where are you going to put the hooks into the API calls, right? I mean, we all know that these, various products that are embedding the technology are ultimately just using a JSON RESTful API underneath it, and they're making calls out to Anthropic or OpenAI or whomever. I mean, do we as an industry in the security space need to exert some pressure for them to put some sort of hooks into those APIs that allow us some monitoring access? I don't know. I mean, maybe we do. Yeah, I just think things are moving quickly, and it's very early. All right, that dropped like a lead balloon. So let's move on to the next topic. All right. So, what about mitigating these risks of prompt leakage and shadow AI, and what can organizations do right now? Brian Furman.
Well, as we already talked about, I mean, looking at how can they safely allow for their users to access these different services, whether it means getting enterprise-based accounts where you can feel at least somewhat comfortable of giving information to these different providers, or hosting your own services, which, I mean, depending on how large the company, may or may not be feasible, because it certainly is not cheap to host your own infrastructure. It's not cheap to pay for cloud infrastructure. So that really depends on how many people do you have, how many people are using it, and is it really worth it to you to be hosting your own stuff? And obviously, that's going to depend a lot on the organization and their use cases. But beyond that, certainly clear policies that just guide users into how they are and are not allowed to use the AI, I think, are some of the first good steps to helping keep data safe.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
say back of the math kind of a back of the napkin kind of math for if you're going to host your own LLM service like an AWS for a company. I would go with between $1,500 and $2,000 per year per user when you talk about like the cost of the GPU, how many users can use like said GPU at the same time, and then the overhead for doing that. I'd say, let's say $2,000 a user a year. But I think it kind of starts to like top off, right? But still, like it's not cheap.
No.
But all the things you said, Brian, and then also clearly defined in an AI usage policy like that. I think when we talk about like what is a step that an executive could take today to start going down the road of mitigating this, and that would be to make sure there's a clear AI usage policy if you don't have one.
So I suspect, AI, first of all the organizations that I've talked to in the last 6 months are just jumping both feet into anything AI, right? I mean, they see this task acceleration, right? So I suspect that there are a lot of organizations out there that are saying in their policies, and if they're not, they should be, like, we have an authorized way to use AI, and it is via our enterprise account. And a lot of them probably do have established those enterprise accounts with these frontier providers. And that is at least a way to get some accountability behind it, and to modify that terms of service issue, right? To they're SOC 2 compliant once you get an enterprise account with at least OpenAI. I know that much. I don't know about the other providers. Just sort of get in front of it. And I look at that a lot like the old cloud deployment stuff, and a lot like original wireless when it came out. It was the same kind of thing. Like, organizations just have to get in front of it. But to get in front of it, you're adding to the spend, right? You're spending more. By design, me think. But anyway, educate and train, right? I think that's going to be something that's going to occur or need to occur more and more. Right.
I think we said that in the last one too, right? On our last episode on deepfakes, is like you need if you're doing social engineering training for phishing, it needs to include phishing and now deepfakes. And I mean, I think there needs to be AI training, and coming from the government and contractor world in the past, that's just one more hour of your life that you have to spend every year watching the training video.
Right. So security training has just gotten longer. Sorry, not sorry. You could probably wrap it into the phishing training, social engineering training, which almost every company is doing, and if they're not, they should be, because certainly the aspects of deepfakes and generated content kind of fit that mantra. But I think it goes further than that, right? It goes further than that when it comes to proper stewardship of organizational data, and so it's going to be interlaced into other training, I suspect. Thoughts on that one?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's just going to be something that's just woven in, just like any of the other security practices that people get briefed upon, and the new hire, pamphlet plus the quarterly, yearly, whatever occurrence frequency of security training.
I think it's like you mentioned cloud technology before, and I kind of akin our AI hype cycle phase to other hype cycle phases in the past. It's fun. It's actually a fun exercise to go ask ChatGPT to compare and contrast the blockchain hype phase with the AI hype phase and see what it says. It's kind of fun, actually. But I mean, I think that, once, because there was a time when people deploying things into the cloud, it was an unmitigated disaster, right? I just did a cloud assessment where, I didn't really find a whole lot. They did a great job. But, as we've matured and as organizations and the providers have matured, it's gotten better, right? And I think we'll get there with AI, one day in the future. Maybe.
All right. Well, on that note, I think it's kind of time to close the show. So, hot takes time. Anybody got some hot takes? We probably mentioned them all already. I don't know. I'll go first. Hot take number one: don't go out and just use ChatGPT or whatever public AI as a free service and put your organizational data into that, you're asking for trouble. That's mine.
Oh, yeah, no, similar. Definitely the one I mentioned earlier, things like Warp and other tools that are like, oh, wow, this is awesome, because it is awesome. But take a step back and think for a second, what are the security implications of this? Where's my data going? And do I know what they're doing with it?
And I think my hot take is if you're still one of those IT folks who thinks that AI is a fad or your organization shouldn't be using AI or, oh my gosh, we can't do this because of AI XYZ, yeah, you're missing the boat. It's not going anywhere. No, I
That's
think
right.
it's here to stay. So you probably should get on board with your users are going to want to, use AI to be more productive. And I would go out on a limb. Here's the hot take part. If your organization doesn't adapt to using AI, you might not have an organization.
Exactly. The technology wave's not going away, so surf the wave.
That's right.
All right, on that note, everybody, keep on prompting and be safe out there. Happy AI usage to everybody. Bye-bye.